Okay, glad to see you. Okay, we're going to set up ourselves. We're connecting, we're live streaming. And want to open up. Volume is a little bit high on the mics, so getting feedback. About here. This is good. Yeah, I think so. Everybody here is fine. Okay, very good. So I want to open up. I found this as a very cute opener. It is about Shabbat and a beautiful rhythm and melody by a young singer, daughter of some very famous musicians, who is not Jewish, but I think maybe she's in the category of sort of what I might call Hebrew Christian, but who associates or identifies with the Bible very much. And so she's telling us as Jews what we should be doing. So put her on, please. Yahaloma, that's her name.
Shabbat, Shabbat.
Okay. Okay, very interesting take. No, use of the word he, I presume, roots, also reggae roots in it. Very interesting, a nice take for us to remember. And I think it's pretty inclusive. Every kind of Jew you can imagine in that depiction, beautiful scenery with it and the visuals. So let's go ahead. Welcome, Dr. Norman. And they've got Joe and Barbara here. We've got our two great techies, Abe and Isaac, and Jeff in the back. And we're going to open up our service, page 2, with Matovu. Let's join in together. Page 2. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. V'ani b'rochasav v'techa Shem. Tefilati, tefilati, lecha Adonai, et ratzon, Elohim berov chasdecha aneni bemet ishecha. And let's continue with the morning blessings over on page 10. I see Andrea's joined us also. Shabbat Shalom, Andrea. Page 10. Page 10. Do the blessings. Page 10. The blessings. Let's join in. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sachim v'nafkin ben yom u'ben laila. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tzamo. Baruch atah melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah melech haolam shasani ben chorin. Baruch atah melech haolam pokech ivrim. Baruch atah melech haolam malbi sharumim. Baruch atah melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah mechalam zokef gefufim. Baruch atah mechalam rokoret salamayim. Baruch atah mechalam shasali kol tzorki. Baruch atah mechalam hamechin mitzadei gaber. Baruch atah mechalam ozis bigvura. Baruch atah mechalam otis betifara. Baruch atah mechalam hanoten layoif koach. And we continue with the introduction to the Psalms of Praise, page 54, Baruch Shamar, praise be the one who spoke and the world came into being. We join together as we open. Baruch Shamar v'yaholam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Hoseh v'Reishit, Baruch Omer v'Yaseh, Baruch Gozer M'Kayem, Baruch Merachem al haaretz, Baruch Merachem al habriot, Baruch Mishalem Schar Tov l'Re'av, Vlad v'Kem l'Netzach, Baruch Shemo, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ha'el ha'avar achamon, ha'mehulal b'fi amo, meshubach v'farah b'shon chasidav, u'b'shirei David avdecha nalel chad Eloheinu b'shvachot u'vizmerot, nigadel chanish havecha chanu fo'erch v'naskeshim chanam lichamakenu Eloheinu, yachid chei ulamim, melech meshubach v'ariyad shema gadol, Baruch atah melech halal, v'tishbachot. And we continue page 80, 80, with the Ashrei. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha U'Jalu Chasela, Hashem Shekachalo, Hashem Sharonei Laha, Avti David, Armim Chad Melech, Baruch Hashem Melech. Tilat Adonai daber pi, v'yivarech kol basar shikol shalom b'ed v'anachnu nevarech yam yataveram hallelujah. And we continue the Hallelujah chorus, page 88. Let's all join in, page 88. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Bekacho. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Barov good Lord. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Beteka Shofar. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Beneve Vechinor. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'tofu machol. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'minim ve'ugav. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'tziltzilei shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, b'tziltzilei truah. Kol hanshamati hallelujah, kol hanshamati hallelujah, kol hanshamati hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama te hallelujah, hallelujah. And we continue page 336. That's John Ad. Jochenad marom maho v'chatur tzadikim baronai laisharim nava tehila befi yisharim tit halal uvdivrei ach uveshan chasidim titomam uvekerev kedoshim tit kahadash uvemakalot tivevot amcha beit Yisrael. שכן חובק היצורים לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו להודות להלל לשבח לפאר רומם לדרך להלל ולקלס כל דברי שיר תשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. ברachot ve'odot me'ata bi'ad olam baruch atah Adonai el me'agadol batishbachot el ha'odot Adon ha'niflaot abocher b'shirei zimra melech elchei holamim. Okay, between everybody here, we have a minion also online, so we're going to continue with the Chatzi Kaddish, page 338. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויעמד יברח חילותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה, בעגלה, ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ודול מעלמיה, יתברך, יברך וישתבח, ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשא בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירם בעמה, ויאמרו amen. Page 340, we rise for the Baruch Hu together. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai mevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai chametz v'rechash oseh shomrei et hakol. Reduce the speakers just a touch there. And let's go ahead. Eladon, Dr. Norman, would you lead us in Eladon? It's your melody, please. Go ahead. Page 342. And then we'll sing along with you. Thank you. And we continue page 344 with the vision of the angels in the words of Isaiah and Ezekiel, middle of the page. Farim, Maritzim, Magdishim, Umam, Et Shem Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol HaGibor VeHaNora Kahadoshu Vechulam Mikablim Aleihem Ol Machut Shamayim Zeh Mizeh Venotnim Reshut Zeh Lazeh Lagdish Liotzam Benachat Turach Sofinim HaKedashah Kulam Kecharim V'Yira Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzivaot, Loretz Kevodo, Ve'ofani ve'chayot HaKodesh, Be'ra'ash Kadom Mitnasim L'umat Serafim, Tam Shabchim V'yomrim, Baruch Kavod Adonai, Mimekomo. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה לנו מהרה לירה ברוך אתה יוצא הארץ המאורות. Go ahead, page 346. 346 together, the top of the page. Amar Rabba Haftanu Adonai Eloheinu Chemla Gedola Vitera Chamata Aleinu Ba'avur Avoteinu She'avur Avoteinu Shebatchu Becha Batchu Becha Avinu Malkeinu ותלמדם חוקי חיים, כן תחננו תלמדנו, אבינו האב הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו, ותן בליבנו להבין, להשכיל לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמוע ולעשות, ולקיים כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו li'ahava u'li'ra et shemecha v'lo nevosh le'olam va'ed v'lo nevosh le'olam va'ed ki v'shem kadshecha Agado v'hanara b'tachnu nagila v'nismecha b'shuatecha v'havienu l'shalom mehaba k'hanfot haaretz v'tolichenu k'memiut le'artzeinu Yeshua tata uvanu v'chata mikolam v'lashon keraftanu l'shemcha gadol sela be'emet lehodot lecha uyachetcha bi'ahava baruch atah Adonai and together, I'm going to invite, actually, Andrea. I have a beautiful recording of Shema Via Hafta, so we're going to put that one up. It's on page, we're on page 346, so they're one after the other. That's good. There we go, go back. There we go, Shabbat services. Whoa. Oh, okay. Let me put it up with mine. Hold on. And go from my end. I see on the end. Okay, here we go. Now we have to notify you. Okay, I think so. We take the tzitzit in hand, and we join for the Shema. And I'm going to give you this version. We'll sing along with him. This is by Tzvika Pik. Oh, that's not the right. Okay. What happened? I had this all nice set up. There we go. Now, wait a minute, one more. Wait. Hold on. Gotta get this right. That's it.
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Continue with Haftarah. Go ahead, join in.
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
And we continue now, silently, page 348. Thank you, Andrea. So we continue the bottom paragraph, the last paragraph of the Shemaz. We take tzitzit in hand. Vayomer Adonai Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'mata lehem sulem tzitzit al kanpei bigdehem lidaratam v'natnu tzitzit hakanaf betil techelet v'chem litzitzit וראיתם אותו, זכרתם מקום מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם, ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם מקום מצוותיי, הייתם קדושים לליכם. אני אדוני לכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני לכם אמת, אני לכם אמת. And now we're going to go ahead over to page 350, the Song of the Liberation at the shores of the Red Sea, the bottom of page 350. Tilot le'ele yon monachu mevorach Moshe uvnei Yisrael chanu shira b'simcha rabah v'yamru chulam mi kamocha va'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh norati lot osefele שירה חדשה, שבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים. שירה חדשה, שבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל עובדיכם ומך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני גואל ישראל. And we continue the opening of the Amida, page 354 and 356, straight through to 364, the Hebrew, the English, adding our own meditations. Adonai, sefatai tiftach, upi yagid tilatecha, baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elahei avotenu, Elahei Abraham, Elahei Yitzchak, v'Elahei Yaakov, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanara, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh HaKol, V'Zocher Chazdei Avot, Me'Begeh B'Nehem, L'man Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Mashiach Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Abraham, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayim Meitim Atah Rav Loshia, Morid Hatal, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayim Meitim Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofeh Cholim, O Matir Asurim, O Mekayim Emunato Lishenei Afar. Mi chamocha b'gevurot, u'mido melech, melech memit, u'mechayeh, u'matzmiach Yeshua, ne'eman atah l'chayot meitim, baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hametim. Nekadesh shimcha b'olam, keshem shemakti shemoto b'shmei marom, כתוב, ויען נביאך, קורא זה ויאמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, ארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, עדי וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים לעומת צרפים. תם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני, ממקומו. וממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כמחכים אנחנו לך, מתי תמלוך בציון, קברנו ותשכון, תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים, עירך לדור ודור, netzach netzachim. V'eineinu tirena, tirena malchutecha, k'adavo chomu b'shirei uzecha. Ayidei David Meshikecha Yimlo Haranai Le'olam Elahayich Tzion Ledor. Hallelujah. Ledor Nagigad Lecha Lenehetzach Netzachim Kedusha Nagdish Shechacha Eloheinu Mipinu Lo Yamush. L'Moshe Ved Ki El Melech Gadol V'Kadosh Ata Baruch Atanai Ha'el HaKadosh.
On the end, I got just bitterness. I don't need it.
Maybe seated. I want to go back to Vishamru, and I have this Vishamru version sung in Warsaw, in the synagogue in Warsaw, a few years ago by a cantor who originally was in the choir in the synagogue in Warsaw. So it's a melody coming out of Warsaw. The Shabbat is falling right on the heels of Yom Hashoah, which was Wednesday night, Thursday. And so we're going to add some elements appropriate for this Shabbat. So if you can put that one on, it's on page 358. After, this is the one that's still standing. Sim Shalom. Sorry. Yeah, it's Sim Shalom, page 362. It says on the, that's it, good.
The great synagogue.
Ostatnia kompozycja z Wielkiej Synagogi nad Łomackiem.
וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים
Barbara, let's go for a little update. Cantor David Vishnia and the pianist is his grandson, Avi. Thank you for that. Okay. For Shavuot. We had a, I remember back when we were in the midst of the pandemic, we were entirely online. So we had one Shabbat where we coordinated with the synagogue in Warsaw. And we're online with them. So this was with the liberal congregation. This is with the liberal congregation. This is the tradition. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Okay. And you were online Thursday with the museum. I had you online. Did you say he was on the news? Next had you. Okay. All right. That's it. It's our Joe. We're going to do a little word of study. And it talks about how important it is to be very, very careful in study. So page 634 from Pirkei Avot, the words of Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yehuda, colleague of Rabbi Akiva's, who said, Hevei Zahir b'Talmud, be exceptionally careful. Now, it's interesting. Talmud, we usually think in terms of studying, but if you look at their translation, it's the, well, you watch, Shigigat Talmud, right? A mistake in study, how does one make a mistake in study? Ole Zadon. Cost you as if it were intentional. How can you make a mistake in study? You study. So correctly, the word Talmud is not just you read a book, you have a test the next day. Correctly, it means you are examining in order to give a legal decision. And if you don't Remember, these are all judges. Job of the rabbi was to be the judge. If you have a case in front of you, somebody accuses somebody of some terrible act, and you don't follow the case properly, you have not examined what are the rules behind, what are the bases, what's the principle, and you don't remember, and you apply the wrong ruling, you've committed a crime. So one who's in position of decision making has to be so much more careful in that than just like a person who's just reading a book for the fun of reading a book. You can see the distinction. So this is true for anybody whose craft is involved in dealing with other people. Be exceptionally careful in knowing what's the basis, the foundations, examining carefully, because that mistake can cost. Yeah, but at this point, yeah, but I must know my sources. I must be very careful. What sources? And that is true. A lawyer today, a judge today gives a decision to allow testimony, to disallow testimony, to a Supreme Court judge, whether relying on what have they learned, where have they gone back to the books correctly? And that happens all the time, that question, and it can be life and death. So the mistake, right? So, yeah.
Is it possible to make a decision because there are no clear rules? At the end, the decision is done by a Supreme Court, which means whatever is the expression, that's putting the rule.
Yeah, even if it's a wrong ruling, and even if it's a wrong ruling, so this is right, you're stuck with it, right? It can have terrible implications, right? So again, we go back. Anybody who's in a position of authority has to be very careful and cautious. What am I basing my authority upon? What am I basing my authority upon? Because the error in application of authority can be malicious and an innocent error. How much more so people who are in charge of a position of authority do intentional malfeasance on top of it. Okay, we continue with. That's why the rabbi said somebody who's in position of judgment should imagine that a sword is hanging above and the fire of hell is open below. That is how careful one must make a decision. Okay, the Kaddish the Rabbanan, page 20. Page 20, the Kaddish the Rabbanan. Yitkadal, v'yitkadash, shemei rabba, v'alma divra chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon, v'yomechon, v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'galau v'zman karivim v'amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach le'olam u'lemer maya, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitrumam, v'yitnasei, v'yithadar, v'yit'aleh, v'yithalal, shemei dekucha berichu, le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, d'amyom b'yomah v'amen, al Yisrael, v'al Rabbanan, v'al Tamidei Hon, kol Tamidei Hon, command oskim b'raita, di v'atra hadein, v'di v'chol ata v'atar, yehei lahon v'lachon shlomo rabba, china v'chisa v'rachmin, chayin arichim, zone v'chai, v'kodam min kodam avohon di v'shmaya v'amen, yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chayim tovim aleinu v'akoyse v'amen, ose shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'akoyse v'imru amen. Amen. And now we continue page 394 for the Torah service. And we're back to the regular Torah scroll. Okay, 294, this whole journey. Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kamasecha machutcha machut kol amim u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'ador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Adonai oz le'amo yitein Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom Av harachamim, etiva b'tzoncha et Zion. Tivne chomot Yerushalayim, tivne chomot Yerushalayim. Ki v'chalev abatachnu, melech Eram v'nisa, Adon olamim. Vayhi ben Saharon, vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, ve'yafotzu oyevecha, ve'yanusu mesanecha, mipanecha, ki mitzion teitzei Torah, ki mitzion teitzei Torah, Udevar Adonai mi Yerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, Mikedushato. Page 298. Be'anarachetz belishmei kadisha, kadisha yakira, ana amatush bechan. Be'anarachetz, be'anarachetz belishmei kadisha, kadisha yakira, ana amatush bechan. Yehi Rava Kadamach Detiftach Libi Beoraita Betashli Mishalin Delibi Veliba Decholamach Yisrael Letavu Chayin Velishlam. Amen. Page 298. And we repeat after me. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadol Adonai Oner Ha'amim Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai Hagedol Hagevura V'Hatiferet V'Netzach V'Hahod Ki Chov Hashamayim U'Va'aretz Ki Chov Hashamayim U'Va'aretz V'Cha Adonai HaMamlecha V'Mitnaseh L'Chol L'Rosh Romemo Romemo Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu Ve'ishtachavu L'Adam Raglav Kadoshu Romemo Romemo Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu Ve'ishtachavu L'Adam Raglav Kadoshu Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Okay, please be seated. This yeah, this is the correct one. Page 485. Page 485. Okay, so 485. In the portion of Acharei Mot, in the first part of Acharei Mot is the portion that we read on Yom Kippur morning, because it is the instructions for the service of the cleansing of the temple, purification of temple on Yom Kippur, with the ceremony of the scapegoat that we remember. We move on, the middle of the portion deals about not sacrificing to the goats, Azazel, the same, Izim, Seirim. So we have an interesting contrast here. We're sending off Seir Lazazel, the goat sent to the wilderness, Azazel, meaning some kind of demonic force, carrying off our sins, then warning us that we should not confuse that. That would be the reason there's a connection there. We should not confuse that with offerings to these wilderness demons and so on. And so we specify that. Yeah.
Before this, why is so strong against Amalek? Was some kind of custom for the Canaanites at that time?
Amalek?
Amalek?
No, Amalek is not in here.
Because
Azazel is in here, not Amalek.
no, usually before there is a section in which people are comparing, we say the seed to Amalek.
Moloch, not Amalek. Yeah, because now we're coming into this whole question of what are we trying to, so we have this ceremony, we're trying to find, this is the sanctuary, all are being purified at once in the presence of God. Now we're going to distinguish what is not acceptable. So what is not acceptable is offering to the field demons. Second is then moving all of the offerings to the central sanctuary so that we have a handle over religion. Next is allowing then, if we have all the sacrifices officially in the sanctuary, then we allow for eating of meats outside the sanctuary, because eating of meat was originally sacrificed. That's removed from the eating of meat. And then we have other things, and one of them is Lo tavir bano leMoloch. Offer, and now we're talking about what we may not do is do not offer your child to Moloch.
We see that Rashi thinks that you should do sacrificing sons for the sake of
Right. It's usually assumed. Now, it's not clear if the child is actually burned or killed or just singed in the fire as a kind of ceremony. But it's clear that this is something that's prohibited. The word, what's the Hebrew word for hell? Huh? No, for hell, sorry. Get right? Get to Gehenom, right? Go to hell, right? Lech leGehinom. So what is Gehinom? What's the Jewish idea of hell? Ge ben Hinom. It is the valley as you go, look at the old walled city of Jerusalem. The main entrance is the Jaffa Gate. You follow along the right side, and there's a valley below that. That is the valley of Hinnom. Now, why does that mean hell? Because that is where, at one period, the ceremony of Moloch was carried out. That's it. So that's where it comes from. So for a Jew, you do that, that's hell. That's hell. So then we come to this part, which is the part that we actually read traditionally on Yom Kippur afternoon, but we've jumped ahead. Modern custom has been to go ahead to Kiddushim, the next portion about sanctity and behavior. And it talks about all the things that the Egyptians and the Canaanites did. So we're going to move everybody away, as much as we can, get them away from the practices, the ritual, the worship practice, and this is now the sexual practices. An example being that Pharaoh married a sister. That was acceptable. It was only Pharaoh married a sister. The other Egyptians didn't do it. That was special. So you're not going to do that sort of stuff. She's a sister through the uncle of the right, right? That was how he got, because he didn't want to get killed. That's right. But that's different. Oh, but we have a bigger problem. I'll give you a bigger problem. It also says, you shall not take two sisters. And the word is soreret, antagonize. It's not fair. You're setting two sisters against each other. So now what's the contradiction? Okay. So how do I explain that? What's centuries before Moses gets this instruction? Okay, that's an easy out. That's an easy out. Now, here's another one. On that question about not marrying, right, not having the, it's one man not taking the widow of the wife of the brother. The widow of the brother. The history of the Western civilization depended on that one line. Carmen, you remember English history? Henry VIII.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
With the first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Why? Yeah, why? What was the case? It's based on this on this portion. It is that Catherine of Aragon first married to the older brother, and then a few days later he dropped dead. And then he, in order to keep the line right, had to marry the throne. So they went around it because it was against Catholic law following this. He should not. Well, okay, they never consummated the marriage because he dropped dead before he could do anything. That's how they permitted him to marry. Then he said, I have to get rid of Catherine, no sons coming out. And so now I have to go find a commentary that says he really did consummate the marriage. If he really did consummate the marriage, then I'm not married to her because Leviticus is here. Now, what he did not do is go to Deuteronomy where it says he had to do it. Notice that Deuteronomy gives a contradiction. No, you're talking about Jacob. Reuben tried to take one of the second wives and got in trouble, big trouble for it. There's a hint of it. It's not explicit, not clear, but and he's condemned for it. So, but that's again, it's before Torah, after Torah. But you can see how the history of empires rises and falls on how one interprets something. All right. No, then there was this King David's son who raped a daughter. But we won't get into family history. There's things in the family closet you don't rattle the bones in the family closet. Right. But what is the whole thing? Okay. Yeah. Well, what's the whole point? Yeah. The intent is how can we take maledom and tame it? That this is the key point. So we got lots of restrictions that other people don't have on our behaviors. And the intention is that we're going to try to have the male focus on what builds a society and not what tears it apart. I think till today, human beings have tremendous difficulties dealing with sexuality. Tremendous difficulties till today. So is it absolutely correct? Does it absolutely work? I can tell you in Hasidic and ultra-Orthodox societies, there are lots of problems. Lots of problems. Does it in the aggregate mitigate? That's a different question. In other words, are the number of problems that are here because you're trying to control less than when you have absolutely no control? And then the problems multiply or they disappear. There's no easy answer. No easy answer. But what the boils down to is, what we need is some kind of self-restraint in all our sexual activities and proclivities. Because otherwise, everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. That's the whole point. Okay, so that's our Torah portion. We're going to go in page 522. I'm sorry. 4. You're right. You got it. I got it mixed up. There we go. Okay, yeah, because my printout. I had the wrong page on my printout. Oh, no, Cohen. So you're the Nayach, you get a double deal. Okay, so we're going to start. Let me have somebody. Where did I put that? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Marcelo, would you stand up on the other side here and be our spotter? Yeah, okay, yeah, if you can get the outline up there, that'll help a lot. 485, chapter 17, verses 1 through 7. Oh, very good. Wow. Good, and through number 7, just Lehem the Dorotan. Okay, go ahead. Yamod, Yoranach Medavid Shaga Levi, Bimkom Kohen.
Baruch
Adonai Barak Leolam
Leolam Poet, Baruch Adonai Lahani Melech Olam, Asher Bachabona Mekalu Amen, Natan Lanu Estorusoi, Baruch Atu Adonai, Noten HaTorah.
Amen. וידבר אדוני משה לאמור, דבר אל אהרון ואל בניו ועל כל בני ישראל, ואמרת להם, זה הדבר אשר ציווה אדוני לאמור, איש מבית ישראל אשר ישחט שור או כסף או עז במחנה, או אשר ישחט מחוץ למחנה אל פתח אוהל מועד, לא הביאו להקריב קורבן לאדוני לפני משכן אדוני, דם יחשב לאיש ההוא, דם שפך ונכרת האיש ההוא מקרב עמו, למען יביאו בני ישראל זבחיכם אשר הם זובחים על פני השדה, והביאום לאדוני אל פתח אוהל מועד אל הכהן, וזבחו זבחי שלמים לאדוני אותם, וזרק הכהן את הדם על מזבח אדוני פתח אוהל מועד, וכתיר החלב לא יכניחוך לאדוני. לא יזבחו עוד את זבחיכם לשעירים אשר הם זנים אחריהם, חוקת עולם תהיה זאת להם לדורותם.
ברוך אדוני מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, חי עולם נטו בסכנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. יעמוד. Yudanov and David Shaga, Levi, get double dipping, page 486, verses 8 through 12.
Baruch
Adonai Barak Leolam
Baruch Hanam Baruch Leolam Poet, Baruch Adonai Melech Olam, Asher Bachaboni Mekolu Amen, Natan Lanu Estorusoi, Baruch Adonai נותן התורה.
אמן. ולהם תאמר, איש מבית ישראל מן הגר בתוכם, אשר יעלה עולה או זבח ואל פתח אוהל מועד, לא יביאנו לעשות אותו לאדוני, ונכרת האיש ההוא מעמיו, ואיש מבית ישראל מן הגר בתוכם, אשר יאכל כל דם, ונתתי פני בנפש האוכלת את הדם, והכרתי אותה מקרב עמה, כי נפש הבשר בדם הוא, ואני נתתי לכם על המזבח לכפר על נפשותיכם, כי הדם הוא בנפש יכפר על כן אמרתי לבני ישראל, כל נפש מכם לא תאכל דם, והגר בתוכם לא יאכל דם, איש גר בתוכם לא יאכל דם.
ברוך אדוני מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, חי עולם נטו בסכנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
In the section we just read, we also have this emphasis on not eating the blood, pouring out the blood, because the blood is a symbol of forgiveness, symbol of life and symbol of forgiveness. Therefore, it's used in the altar only in the central sanctuary for obtainment of forgiveness, and therefore shall not be used in any other way. So kashrut, rules of slaughter, aren't to cut the vein in such a way that all the blood falls out as quickly as possible. And then what else do you do with meat? Oh, you don't do it anymore because the butcher does it for you. And if you still remember doing it, salt and soak. Yeah. Does anybody remember doing it? Salting and soaking. That's it.
What?
So you do.
Yeah, money.
To salt. Yeah, that's right.
Soak the meat.
Right.
Yeah, used to soak the meat for
Right.
an hour.
That's
to-
right. So today
to
the
drain-
butchers,
to drain the blood.
today the butchers do it automatically
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
avoid the problem of who knows how to do it correctly.
Yeah.
Ish, there we go. Yeah, and that's it.
Okay. The Ish
Go
is,
ahead.
Ish is.
Ish. The blessing, the next page. That's an issue. That's prayer for Israel. It's one of them. That's it. Okay. It's in English or Russian.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך,
Baruch Hanevach Lamed.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. 13 through 16.
Ish.
ואיש איש מבני ישראל מנהגי הגר בתוכם אשר יצווה יצוד ציד וחיה או עוף אשר יוכל לשפוך את דמו וכסהו בעפר כי נפש כל בשר דמו בנפשו הוא. ואמר לבני ישראל דם כל בשר לא תאכלו כי נפש כל בשר דמו הוא כל אוכליו יכרת וכל נפש אשר תאכל נבלה טרפה באזרח ובגר בכם וכיבס בגדיו ורחץ במים וטמא עד הערב ותהה ואם לא יכבס בשרו לא ירחץ ונשא עוונו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת בחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Chapter 18 verses 1 through 5. Carmen. There's a question, is there enough salt in it? And the truth, if there is a real blood pressure problem, potassium chloride has been used as a substitute in this. It has the same effect. So that has been done by some. The question, how much salt is actually in the meat afterwards? Does that actually affect blood pressure? I think we're much more realistic in blood pressure and salt now because they're no longer putting absolute ban on salt as they once did. Some salt, right. So what happened? Yeah. Well, that's spices. That's in the category of spicing and seasoning and stuff. Yeah. I mean, how did you protect meat before there was a refrigerator? Salt, that was it. Yeah. Some it has, some is born and some is exercise, and some is diet. Yeah. So the Torah says, you're under command to keep your body healthy. All right, there we go. That gets rid of all the good food. Okay, verses 1 through 4. Go ahead. Tamod.
ברכה בת חיים ומנוחה. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
וידבר אדוני משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת להם אני אדוניכם כמעשה ארץ מצרים אשר ישבתם בה לא תעשו כמעשה ארץ כנען אשר אני מביא אתכם שמה לא תעשו בחוקותיכם לא תלכו את משפטי תעשו ואת חוקותי תשמרו ללכת בהם אני אדוניכם ושמרתם את חוקותי ואת משפטי אשר יעשה אותם האדם וחי בהם אני אדוני.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת בחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Okay, we continue verses
Can I go down?
6 to 21,
Yeah.
page
If you want to
480,
stay, you can also stay.
Or 88.
Okay.
489.
Oh, 80.
6 to
Yeah,
29.
89.
Go ahead.
Yamod,
Abraham ben
Abraham ben Hersh.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Mevorach.
Baruch
Olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Baharbanu Mikol Hayamin Minatalanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. ואיש איש אל כל שיער בשרו לא תקרבו לגלות ערווה אני אדוני ערוות אביך וערוות אמך לא תגלה אמך היא לא תגלה ערוותה ערוות אשת אביך לא תגלה ערוות אביך היא ערוות אחותך בת אביך או בת אמך מולדת בית או מולדת חוץ לא תגלה ערוותן ערוות בת בנך או בת בתך לא תגלה ערוותן כי ערוותך הנה ערוות בת אשת אביך מולדת אביך אחותך היא לא תגלה ערותה ערוות אחות אביך לא תגלה שאר אביך היא, ערוות אחות אמך לא תגלה כי שאר אמך היא, ערוות אחי אביך לא תגלה, לא אל אשתו לא תקרב דודתך היא, ערוות כלתך לא תגלה אישה אשת בנך היא, לא תגלה ערותה, ערוות אשת אחיך לא תגלה ערוות אחיך היא, ערוות אישה וביתה לא תגלה את בת בנה ואת בת ביתה לא תיקח לגלות ערותה אשרה הנה עזימה היא ואישה אל אחותה לא תיקח לצרור לגלות ערותה עליה בחייה אל אישה בנידה טומאתה לא תקרב לגלות ערותה אל אשת אבות עמיתך לא תיתן שכבך לזרע לטמאה בה ומזרעך לא תיתן להעביר למולך. ולא תחלל שם אלוהיך, אני אדוני. That's it. Go ahead. Continue.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet Ve'Hayei Olam Ata Betochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
יישר כוח.
Okay.
And number 6 Aliyah, verses 22 through 25.
Yeah, whatever you want.
22 through 25. תעמוד.
רחל בת שמואל ורבקה.
רחל ורות ורבקה.
What is that, man? Oh, I know it. Getting fancy. Okay.
ברוך הוא את אדוני מבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
Amen. ואת זכר לא תשכב משכבי אישה תורתי, ובכל הבהמה לא תיתן שכבך לטמאה בה, ואישה לא תעמוד לפני בהמה, לרבעה תבל היא, אל תטמע בכל אלה, כי בכל אלה נטמעו הגויים, אשר אני משלח לברית ביניכם, ותטמע הארץ בפקוד עוונה עליה, תקיא הארץ את יושביה ושמרתם אותם. שמרתם אותה את חוקותיי ואת משפטיי, לא תעשו כל הטובות האלה, הזך והגר בתוככם.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחי עולם נתן בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
יעמוד הרב נחמן בן הרב זאב.
ברוך הוא אדוני יבורך,
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אני יבורך לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה מחלום אשר בחרבנו מכל עמים ונתן לנו את תורתו, ברוך אתה נותן התורה.
אמן.
את כל התועבות העד עשו אנשי הארץ אשר לפניכם, ותטמע הארץ ולא תקיא הארץ אתכם, בטומאתם אותה, כאשר קאה את הגוי אשר לפניכם, כי כל אשר יעשה מכל התועבות האלה, ונחרטו הנפשות העושות מקרב עמם, ושמרתם את משמרתי, לבלתי עשות מחוקות הכואבות אשר נעשו לפניכם, לא תטמעו בהם, אני אדוני אליכם. מי? ברוך אתה מהחלום שנתן לנו תורת המחיים בתוכנו, ברוך אתה נותן התורה.
אמן.
Okay, Mishabach, we pray for those who are ill. We have the Mishabach. Yeah. Pray for all those who are ill. Mishabach, Avotenu, V'ham Yitzhak v'Yakov, Saraf Achev Leah, Yivarech v'Reper Techolim. The one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Becca, Rachel, and Leah. Bless those who are ill, Joe Alexander, Moisey Kelchik, Ronnie Duran, Herod Levins, Moisey Ben Manya, Barbara Mormon, Judy Alkaline, Richard Zeller, Judy Smith, Samuel Smith, Roger Rosen, Robert Drato, Rachel Aflalo, Susan Tuckman, Inga Boos, Jan Deborah, Robin, Rosaline Bat Rivka, Hannah Bat Chaya, Marvin Katz, Andrea Vassillev. Scroll down. Yeah, there we go. Liba Bat Sarah, Herb Mormon, Hannah Sarah, Leah Bat Rachel, Hannah Sarah Bat Kayla Alta, Sophie, the friend of Judy Alkali, Hannah Bat Sarah, Irina Sepian, Alan Whalen, Laba Masha Ben Sarah, Jennifer Fraser, Yal Ben Hannah, Shoshana Bat Sarah, Eli Brukim, Louis Jason, Victor Vallejo, and all those who have been affected by COVID-19 virus and wars and acts of terror, and they have speedy recovery. Please give me names of people you want to mention.
Shlomo ben Moshe Wolf,
Shlomo ben Moshe Wolf,
Sima Harlev, Ronan Ter Harlev,
Lev,
Susan
Susan
Feinberg,
Feinberg,
Sharon Lipman,
Sharon Lippman,
Esther Rachel Batsiva,
Rachel Batsiva,
Laban Moshe Ben Sarah,
Moshe Sarah,
and Helen
Helen
Flack.
Flax,
Tito and Gabi
Peter
Gorodishu,
and Gary
Judy
Bishop,
Freeman,
and Julie Freeman,
Ronald
Ron
Rothman,
Rothman,
Carol and Julian Eisner.
Karen, and Julian Eisner. Natalie Bat Eliyahu, Elahi Bruchim, Lenet Simini, Rachel Bat Ventura, Rivka David Asherson, Wendy Keller, and anyone else who is ill, may they all be well. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yamei Rachim Aleichem, Lachzi Kamer Fatami Shlach Lem Ruheira, Shua Shlema L'Chayim Toshach Alei Yisrael. Amen. May the Holy One send them healing both in body and in mind to them, to the whole house of Israel. And let's all say Amen.
Amen.
And the Mishaber, I have again, this one from Andrea. I'm going to pull it on mine because I think there's something in the setting. Okay. In the setting here. So let me go to the share screen for a second and pull up Mishaber for us.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Amen.
Yalmud Debril Charisir Yamlich Malchutei
B'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'chayedecho Beit Yisrael v'agala u'bizman kahari v'imiru amen Ishmera b'mevorach Le'olam lo me'omaya Yitvarach
Yisborach v'yishtabach v'yisborach v'yisramam v'yisnaseh v'yisnadar v'yisaveh v'yisalo Shemei v'yishaberichu v'eilam kol berachata v'shirata
Tush bechata v'nech Hemata damiram be'omcha V'imiru
Amen.
Okay, Maftir Aliyah, page 493, verses 26 to 30. Yamo.
Yamot Yitzchak ben Eliyahu.
This one should be actually 28. Look at the odds. There we go. That's what you said.
Baruch hu Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. כי את כל הטובות האלה עשו אנשי הארץ אשר לפניכם ותטמע הארץ ולא תקים הארץ אתכם ותמכם אותה כאשר קרא את הגוי אשר לפניכם כי כל אשר יעשה מכל הטובות האלה ונחרטו הנפשות העושות מקרב עמם ושמרתם את משמרתי לביתי עשות מחוקות הטובות אשר נעשו לפניכם לא תטמעו בהם אני אדוני אליכם.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו את תורתו, תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נעתה בתוכנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Please rise as we pick up the Torah all together. Torah Shesa Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Ap Yadona
Ad Moshe
Eitz Chaim Hi Lamachazikim Ba Betom Ha'ameusha Eitz Chaim Hi Lamachazikim Ba Betom Ha'ameusha דרכך דרכם בכל נתיבותיה שלום דרכך בכל נתיבותיה שלום די 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 Okay. The Mafta reading is special Mafta reading because tomorrow's Rosh Chodesh, although you're not supposed to know that tomorrow's Rosh Chodesh till I announce it. But anyway, but it says Macha Chodesh, and it's taken from the account of David, Jonathan, and Saul, which takes place on Macha Chodesh, the day now the next day is going to be Rosh Chodesh. And so it is the story of how the two show their loyalty, even when Jonathan, who knows that David would be replacing him in the throne, instead of him being the king, still knows that his obligations to what the prophet Samuel has said, to put David as the ruler after Saul. And of course, Saul is dead set against this, throws his spear at Jonathan. Jonathan figures, well, if my father throws a spear at me, he must be mad. And he goes and warns David. So that is the core of the story. Language is very spicy language in it. In the period of David, I use very spicy language. I won't go into it, but the portion retains that. They want to give us a flavor of how people's emotions are. Page 948. Machar Chodesh, 948, in the book of Samuel. 948, chapter 20 of the first book of Samuel. Right?
אשר בחר בנביאים טובים ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת והצדק. ויאמר לו יונתן מחר חודש ונבחרת כמפקד מושבך ושילשת טרף מאוד ובאת אל המקום אשר נסתרת שם ביום המעשה וישבת אצל האבן העזה ואני שלושת החצים צידה עודה ושלח לי למטרה והנה אשלח את הנער לך מצא את החצים אם אמור אומר לנער הנה החצים ממך והנה כוחנו ובואה כי שלום לך ואין דבר חי אדוני ואם כוח אומר לאלם הנה החצים ממך והלאה לך כי שלחת אדוני והדבר אשר דיברנו אני ואתה הנה אדוני ביני ובינך עד עולם. ויסתר דוד בשדה ויהי החודש וישב המלך אל הלחם לאכול וישב המלך על מושבו כפעם בפעם אל מושב חקיל ויקום יהונתן וישב אבנר מצד שאול ויפקד מקום דוד. ואם דיבר שאול מאומה ביום ההוא כי אמר מקרה הוא בלתי טהור הוא כי לא טהור. ויהי ממחרת הקודש השני ויפקד מקום דוד. ויאמר שאול אל יהונתן בנו מדוע לא בא בן ישי גם תמול גם היום את הלחם. ויען יהונתן את שאול נשאל דוד מעמדי עד בית לחם. ויאמר שלחני נא כי זבח משפחה לנו בעיר והוא סיבה לי אחי אתה אם מסרתי הן בעיניך אם עלת נא ואראה את חי על כן לא בא אל שולחן המלך. ויהר אף שאול ביהונתן ויאמר לו בן נעבת המדרות הלא ידעתי כי בוחר אתה לבן ישי לבושתך ולבושת ערוות אמך כי כל הימים אשר בן ישי חי על האדמה לא תיקון אתה ומלכותך ואתה שלח וקח אותו אלי כי בן מוות הוא. ויען יהונתן את שאול אביו ויאמר אליו למה יומת מה עשה. ויתר שאול את החנית עלה להכותי וידע יהונתן כי חלה היא מעם אביו לחמית את דוד. ויקום יהונתן מעם השולחן בחורי אף, ולא אכל ביום החודש השני לחם כי נאסף את אל דוד, כי לימו אביו. ויהי בבוקר, ויצא יהונתן השדה למות דוד לנער קטון עמו, ויאמר לנערו רוץ מצא נא את החצים אשר אנוכי מורה, והנער רץ, והוא ירה החצי להעבירו, ויבוא הנער עד מקום החצי אשר ירה יהונתן, ויקרא יהונתן אחרי הנער, ויאמר הלא החצי ממך והלאה, ויקרא יהונתן אחרי הנער מהרה הושע, אל תעמוד, וילקט נער יהונתן את החצים ויבוא אל אדוניו, והנער לא ידע מאומה, אך יהונתן ודוד ידעו את הדבר, וייתן יהונתן את כליו אל הנער אשר לו, ויאמר לו לך הווה העיר. הנער בא ודוד קם אצל הנגב ויפול לאפיו ארצה, וישחטו 3 פעמים, וישקו איש את רעהו, ויבכו איש את רעהו, עד דוד הגדיל. ויאמר יהונתן לדוד לך לשלום, אשר נשמענו שנינו אנחנו בשם אדוני לאמור אדוני יהיה בני ובנך ובן זרעי ובן זרעך עד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך ודבר אחד מדבריך, אחור לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלוות נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני משמח ציון בבניה, שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך ומלכות בית דוד ושייחיך, במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, על כיסאו לא ישב זר ולא ינהלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך משפעת לו, שלא יכבה נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן דוד, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך מלכי בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן.
After Joshua and until David, how did they observe the Moses law? But the Torah was on a house of somebody. So
Probably badly. And poorly. This we know because later on they're constantly falling for the Canaanite gods, and they're constantly being returned. And that's what we know. What we do know is, interestingly enough, archaeological excavations show where there were ancient Israelite settlements, pig bones were very rare. Where the Philistines settled, pig bones in the archaeological remains. So some things we can recognize. The altars and so on, the absence of a lot of images of idols. So they did, but not in big quantities. But how could they keep it? Obviously not anywhere the way they do it in the yeshiva, obviously.
how did they continue the Kohen tradition from their own?
So yeah, so there are many clans that would make claim to that. Till out of one clan would be the Tzadok, clan of Tzadok, get the go-ahead, the green light, right? So they become the official kind of clan. But there are multiple clans. Yeah. Okay,
Word of
let's.
mouth, generation to
Yeah,
generation.
yeah.
Father
It's just
to
hard to know,
son,
yeah, because
son to son.
we do have writings,
But
but we,
the Vatican was the center.
but portable, right?
There was no.
In fact, right, so one of the things, right, there was no centralized completely, because we
Yeah.
do know the different tribe of Dan up in the north set up its own sanctuary. We know that.
Right.
Right, because too far, they set up their own. So we probably had many others. So that's the one that's recorded. So now let's go ahead. We're going to do the prayer for Israel, prayer for the United States. And because this is also Yom Hashoah, Shabbat following Yom Hashoah, I have an El Mole that I want to play also. So first, let's go ahead. The prayer for the United States, which is on page 415. I do want to move ahead because we have a wonderful presentation here, Andrea, and she's going to be joining with us live shortly. So go ahead. Judy, please.
Sisters, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leader and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights of your Torah, that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in the true harmony to banish all hatred and bigotry and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions which are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom and helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen.
Continue prayer for Israel. If we can put that up and we'll chant it together. Can you pull it up for us? Yeah. All together. Let's turn it together. Avinu Shabbat Shamayim. So Yisrael Begalo. Barech et Medinat Yisrael. Eshitz Micha Gulatenu. Again Aleha Bevrat Haslecha. Ufros Aleha Sukat Shelomecha. Snachocha Bamitcha. Noshe Sarev Yotzeha. Taknem Beitzah Tova Milfanecha. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Avinu Sheba Shamayim. Deliver them and crown their efforts with triumph. Avinu Sheba Shamayim. So Yisrael V'Galo. Bless our land with peace, O God. Its inhabitants with lasting joy. And let us say, Amen. Avinu Sheba Shamayim. So Yisrael V'Galo. Barech et Medinat Yisrael. Eshitz Micha Gulatenu. Again, Aleha Bevrat Haslecha. Ufros Aleha Sukat Shelomecha. V'noma Amen. And as I mentioned, this week was Yom Hashoah, and so I have this El Mole in honor of our deceased. It's from, if you can pull it up there, it's on page, the one that says right after 416. The one that's right after that, El Mole Sha'ah. I Cantor Schwartz at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, a very appropriate place.
Imagine for a second if a
on the
third
dignity
generation
of the United States.
had not been annihilated. Imagine the doctors, the researchers, the artists. Imagine the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren flourishing throughout the world today. That is what we mean when we say never again.
Our basic responsibilities as human beings are not complicated. To protect the weak, to shelter those in need, to resist evil in all its forms.
המצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה. במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מאירים ומזהירים לנשמות 6 מיליוני אחינו בני ישראל, אנשים, נשים, ילדים וילדות שנהרגו, שנשחטו, שנשרפו, שנחנקו, שנטבעו ושנקברו חיים בידי הנאצים ועוזריהם יימח שמם באושוויץ, מיידנק, טרבלינקה, מאוטהאוזן ובשאר מחנות ההשמדה, ומסרו נפשם על קידוש השם. שכולנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם. לכן הבעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם, אדוני הוא נחלתם. וינוחו ושלום על משכבם ונאמר
remain standing because we are going to go ahead with the blessing for the new month. And I'm just going to lead it because I want to get on to our guests. Page 418. We'll continue with the blessing for the new month. Someone will take the Torah scroll, please. Or Cantor Schwartz, Ozzy Schwartz. Yeah. In the Capitol Rotunda. Okay. Good. Yeah. Page 418. Yeah. יהי רצון מלפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו שתחדש עלינו את החודש הבא לטובה ולברכה ותיתן לנו חיים ארוכים, חיים של שלום, חיים של טובה, חיים של ברכה, חיים של פרנסה, חיים של חילוץ עצמות, חיים שיש בהם יראת שמיים ויראת חטא, חיים שאין בהם בושה וכלימה, חיים של עושר וכבוד, חיים שתי בנו אהבת תורה ויראת שמיים, חיים שמלאו משאלות ליבנו לטובה, amen. Pray for a life, a long life, a peaceful life of goodness and blessing, a sustenance of physical vitality, life free from shame and reproach, a life of abundance and honor, life of piety and love of Torah, a life in which the desires of our hearts shall be fulfilled for good. We say amen. Middle of the page. Misha Sanisim, Misha Sanisim, Nisim, Nisim, Lavotehinu, Misha Sanisim, Misha Sanisim, Lavotehinu velanu, Begalotam Avdut Lecherut, Hu Yegalotanu Bekarov, Vikabetz Nilachenu Me'aba Kanfot Haaretz, Haverim Kol Yisrael, Haverim Kol Yisrael, V'nomar Amen. Rosh Chodesh Iyar biyom Machar Shabbat biyom Sheni haba Aleinu v'Kol Yisrael Litova. Yechadesheu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Aleinu v'Kol Amo Yisrael l'chaim u'l'shalom, l'sason u'l'simcha, l'yeshua nechama, v'nomar Amen. New month of Iyar begins tomorrow, Sunday and Monday. May come to us and for all Israel for good. May this month be fulfilled for life and peace, happiness and joy, salvation and comfort. And we all say amen. Now we're going to return the Torah to the ark. We continue as long as you've got it. Page 422. We're going to start to go around. Yalelu et Shem Adonai, ki neskav Shemo levado, hodo ale retz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'amo, tehila lecho chasidav, livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Mizmor leDavid. Avul Adonai b'nei Elim, Avul Adonai kavodos, Avul Adonai kavod shemo, Ishnach Avul Adonai behadrat kodesh, Mayim el kvoderim, Adonai mayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai be'ada, Kol Adonai shaver arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et hazeh havanon, Erkedem koegvon Sion kemo v'nemim, Kol Adonai chotzev lavotesh, Kol Adonai yachim midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yacholeh layalot, Yosef yorechol kulo omer kavod, Adonai lama bul yashav, Vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai varech et amo v'shalom. Page 426. Etz chayim hi lama chazikim ba, v'tom cheha me'usha, teracheha dacheinam, v'chol netivoteha shalom. Ashiveinu Adonai Elecha v'nashova Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Maybe. See, let's continue with En Keloheinu together, 508, all together. En Keloheinu, En Kadoneinu, En Kemalkeinu, En Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadoneinu, Michemakeinu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adoneinu, Nodel Makeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Makeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Makeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru Avoteinu, Lefanecha Eketoret Hasamim. Page 510, Aleinu, back up to the ark. Together. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol lo tekidu leyotzei breshit shelo asanikei haratzot velo samanu k'mishpachat adama shelo sam chelkeinu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim akadosh baruch hu שנוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, משה ויקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבי מרומים. ואלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך. כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחתינו. נאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו echad. Please be seated. On this Shabbat following Yom Hashoah, we have in our thoughts the remembrances of those who died in the Holocaust, also those who passed away in defense of the land and the people of Israel in the years after. We remember those who passed away this year: Irma Smith, Miriam Budai, Elaine Goldsmith, Shirley Marco, Erna Nissan. Also the outsites of those who passed away at this time in previous years: Moshe Kremen, George Viso, Reza Pebluda. May their memories be for a blessing, for the souls bound up in the bond of eternal life. Those reciting the Monas Kaddish, please recite with me, page 512. Also, Moshe Wolf, then Avram Yitzchak. As you said, Moshe Wolf ben Avram Yitzchak, and Machover bat Kishva. So we recite Yitkadal v'Yitkadash Shemei Rabba v'Ama Divra Chirutei v'Yamich Malchutei Chayechon v'Yamechon v'Chayei D'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'Galau B'Zman Kariv Imru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam Omer Maya Yitbarach v'Yishtabach v'Yitpamar v'Yitramam v'Yitnasei v'Yithadar v'Yitalev v'Yithalal Shemei D'Kucha Berichu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damram b'omar v'imru amen yesh lomo rabba min shemaya b'chayim aleinu v'akoyse v'imru amen ose shalom b'imramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'akoyse v'imru amen. Okay, so we're going to do, I'll do the Adon Olam at the end. I'd like to go into our very, very, very enlightening and uplifting segment And I'm going to introduce our guest. I'm going to the share screen for 1 second. And just to pull up one thing, one item. And then we'll do another one after. And just pull this up for a second. Okay, now, let me do this also. Okay. There we go. Let me see here. Okay. 1, 2, also. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, one second. I'm going to then also highlight for you in just 1 second, Andrea. So let me stop my share right now. There we go. There's Andrea. Okay. If you can come on. There we go. Okay. Shabbat Shalom and welcome. Okay. You can open your mic. Yeah, now we can.
How's that?
Good, good. Okay. Glad to have you here with us, Andrea. And I'm going to introduce you. A lot of you here are familiar with her because Andrea, when we were functioning before, she would come in sometimes. And she was coming from a good distance from Pasadena and join us. And then she prepared some nice videos that we've used also on high holidays, as I did today at Shabbat also.
You know, I gotta say, Rabbi, if we had these services at night or in the afternoon, you might see a lot more.
Okay. That's when I'm having lunch. That's the only thing. What can I tell you? Okay. So we're glad to have you here on board, even if it's long distance this way.
Beautiful service.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And Andrea is, besides having a lovely voice and a very lovely personality, also is doing her doctorate in psychology. And I see very often on a Facebook page, you post very, very uplifting things, the things that you're doing, things that you're involved in. So that's why I brought you on board. And I'm going to say here, just as a lead in to this, that kind of a tie-in with this Shabbat falling after Yom Hashoah. And it is on resilience and recovery. I think about here's our own Joe was on Zoom webinar this week, made it to Ken XT also about Yom Hashoah. Right, right. And then here, Joe and Barbara, good examples of people who went through the severe trauma of the Holocaust. Joe, you visited every camp there was in Europe, and just about, and Barbara, you were an orphan child and refugee in Central Asia. So the question we have to ask is, how do people manage to pick themselves up off the ground? And is this something we can learn? And indeed, it's very interesting that research of survivors found a very high prevalence of resiliency, forgiveness. It's about 65% of the survivors scored very high on resilience traits. And 78% were engaged in processes considered resilient, felt they were transcendent, or had engaged in behaviors that helped them grow and change over the years since the Holocaust, including leaving a legacy and contributing to the community. So these survivors have something that gives us an indication that when the worst is the worst, you still can come forward. So I want to just pull this up quickly, because Judy Alcala sent me something interesting. Just going to put it up on the screen. Let me get back to the share screen a second. 1 second, just to pull this up quickly. It was an unusual book she had come across. This was a handwritten art book by somebody done in one of the camps, Camp de Gour, 1941. Now, this is a roundup camp. It's not yet one of the labor camps, and certainly not yet a death camp, but it was bad enough. There's about 15% died of disease and dysentery. But that is also very common, prevalent in many refugees camps. But the title, very telling for us, is So ist es, aber so soll es sein. This is how it is, pretty bad. This is how it should be. And you see this miserable rain pouring down on the barracks, and then a kind of a castle on the hill with the sun shining on it. So, and she writes a beautiful little poetry in a colloquial German, And you can see here in the camp for real, it's raining all the time and we're stuck in the mud, but we really expect, aber so soll es sein, right? This is how it should be. We can lie down and bake ourselves in the sun, get a nice tan. That's what we want to have. Or another one here, 60 people in a barrack, body lice in the clothes and fleas all over the bed. And that is our wonderful neighborhood. And then this is what it should be, a beautiful castle with wonderful furniture and everybody's friends and wonderful company. That's how it should be, right? So that's,
Hey, Rabbi,
yeah,
can I add a quick correlate?
go ahead. Wait, I'm going to close this down.
Well, it's about that actually.
Or go ahead.
So I don't speak colloquial German, so I don't actually know how it translates. Does it translate as should? Because I know every language has a different translation of should. In English, it's very much, it's developed like a kind of shame and pressure, like you should do this, to be successful, you should be rich, you should be married. Does it translate as should, or does it translate as some kind of desire?
A desire. A desire.
Okay.
That's it. It's the desire. This is how this is how we
want
wish
it.
it to be. That's right, like a prayer. Okay, that's it. So, okay, I'm just going to close it down. There are multiple pages. Magnificent Piece was up for auction. Let me stop the share. There we go. Put it back to you. So, let's highlight. Can you spotlight Andrea? Barbara? No, Andrea. Can you spotlight Andrea so that she shows up on everybody's screen there? Pin. Oh, spotlight. Yeah, that's it. Continue. There we go. Okay, that's it. Nobody, at least whoever wants me. That's not important. Okay, so it's a little bit Pollyannish, but maybe that's the solution, to see the glass is half full rather than drained to nothing. So I think of this because we're coming out of this long 2 years siege. And every once in a while we get this. Oh, it's still not over. Still not over. Still not over. And it has a terrible toll emotionally. Increase in homicide, increase in violence, increase in domestic violence, drug overdose, very bad. Social isolation, excess death because people postpone treatments and there are not enough physicians and hospital staff and so on to properly treat the way they did and could. And so that also took its toll. But now we're getting back, we would hope, to some kind of normalcy. And there's a lot of anxiety people have about that. So I asked Andrea, would you help us, and for people who are following on, with some guidance and advice. So I'll let you take it from here. So tell us about yourself, first of all, a little bit.
Well, actually, first, thank you for such a beautiful service. I really enjoyed it. And actually, you played, I don't know which prayer it was, but you played a clip from a cantor in Warsaw with his son playing the piano.
Right.
That's Cantor Wisnia, right?
Right, yeah.
So he's actually the father of the rabbi that I grew up with.
Oh.
Grandson, Avi, who I was in love with for the first 20 years of my life. You have your eye on the rabbi's son. There are at our home shul. That was my rabbi. So he's wonderful. He passed away very recently. But they did a wonderful show, and Avi carried on his music and his legacy. That's how he survived the Shoah, was playing music for the troops. So that was so interesting that you played that. My mother put it in the chat. She was like, I know him.
Yes, I saw that in the chat. Oh, that's how you knew the secret. Wow, okay.
Small world.
Besides almost marrying Rabbi's son. So tell us more about yourself.
So I am a doctoral student in psychology, possibly forever, but possibly one day an actual psychologist. And I think this is such an important topic. I see a lot of this in a lot of different ways, just people coming back and having to establish this new normal, because let's face it, in any large change, in any large trauma, communal trauma, things will never really be the same. They might be okay, it might be good, but they won't ever be the same. That's okay. And I think it's a really sort of apt subject for the Jewish people to talk about, because let's be honest, we have quite a history of both personal and communal difficulties, right? And everything from recent Passover to Yom Hashoah to the Holocaust. But if you notice, excuse me, you've heard the old joke, you heard the old joke, the Jewish holiday, they tried to kill us, we won, let's see. I mean, it's a joke because there's some truth in that. We have quite a history of survivorship. And I think out of necessity from those experiences, we as a people have developed this really special resilience, like you said, and also compassion. You'll see a lot of Jews in the healing profession. That's not a coincidence. And I think that we also feel, at least I feel this way, it's kind of our obligation, it's a mitzvah to use that compassion that we've learned, to use that resilience that we've learned to help other people. You know, like, we've been there, we can help you, right? So this applies very much to now, to coming out of COVID. How can we process all of these pains that people have experienced on so many levels and build kind of a full life again? So I think that that's a really good topic for us to consider. And I think we as a people have so much to offer in that vein.
So what kinds of difficulties do you see people facing, whether they're aware of it or not, coming back to normalcy?
What kinds of
Officially, we're
difficulties
told
are
it's
we not
officially endemic, not pandemic.
What kinds are we not facing? So, I mean, there's the very obvious ones of stress, and that covers everything from, you know, just the stress of things being so different, to the physical stress of not getting as much exercise because we're not going out, to the worry. Oh my gosh, the impact that worry has on your body and on your brain. Stress is far and away the #1 cause of disease, of all diseases. So that's the #1, that's the headline. There's also the physical, the brain changes that happen over that long. I mean, I see people now who have trouble going into Target because it's so bright and it's so loud and there's so many people, and for 2 years they've basically been sitting home doing nothing, and their brain has gotten used to that. So it can be very overwhelming, both like literally and metaphorically, to go out into the world, especially into a world that doesn't seem to be allowing for that transition period. Actually, there's a lot being written about this right now, that why are we expecting people to jump right back in when it's been such a trauma in some ways? There's also loss. People probably experienced loss, if not of someone they love, then maybe of a job or an opportunity or a project or a hobby or of money or of a business. There's a lot of losses that I think we can all point to during this time. So the challenge becomes really how to reconstruct life in different circumstances. Like when we left Egypt, lost, well, pretty much everything, but we managed to reconstruct our lives. The thing is, it really has to be an intentional process. I think a lot of people are just saying, well, you know, we'll just float back into normal. I don't know that that's going to happen. There has to be a reconstruction, much like after leaving Egypt and after the Holocaust and after, you know, a lot of wars throughout history, there has to be an intentional reconstruction.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of things have to do also with what strategies that people adopt during this whole process. We went out. We made sure not to go breathe right next to anybody. We were outdoors as much as we could. So it kept ourselves walking, and everything was deserted. So everybody else stayed inside. That was our strategy. So, well, now let's get to now. What do people need in order to recover and thrive? What do they need? Give us some suggestions.
Well, you know, if I could bottle it and sell it, we'd be millionaires, and I would give it all to the temple. But in absence of that, my personal thoughts, I think we need from a couple of sources. We need things from ourselves, which can often be the hardest because we don't exactly live in a culture of, you know, self-care and taking time for ourselves. We certainly need things from others. And I actually feel we need things from the divine, which can come in a lot of ways. So from ourselves, I think we need, most importantly, self-compassion. There's a really wonderful book by Kristen Neff on self-compassion. It's a wonderful read. It's something we're not really familiar with. It's not kind of protocol in our lives these days in the modern world. So I think we need to give ourselves some grace and compassion. I think it's really important to be aware of what we need, of what we're doing, of how we're feeling. Again, it's something we tend to rush right past. In the same vein, I think we need to accept that, you know, this might be hard. This might, you know, we might be having difficulties. We're so eager to get back to things that kind of tend to brush aside everything that's happened and not honor what's in some ways really just a healing process. And that takes a lot of patience as well. I think that's something else we need from ourselves. So compassion, patience, acceptance, the same way you might treat a friend. And actually thinking of that, from others, there's so much we can offer others, and there's so much that we also need from others. So for example, community, the community that you have managed to keep going this whole time is invaluable to people because so much isolation, we really need to break that habit. We're not meant to live alone. We're meant to be social creatures. So if we can reestablish that kind of community and keep it going, that's absolutely precious. It's invaluable. And even in a more one-to-one kind of way, I think that the validation we can offer each other, the support we can offer each other is so important because no one has gone through this unscathed, right? No one has come out and been like, yeah, that was totally fine. What's up now? We've all been through something, and recognizing that in each other is a wonderful way to heal and to move forward. So that kind of sharing of experiences, that rebuilding even of trust in other people, because this whole time we've had to be wary. Oh, you have COVID, are you masked, are you vaccinated, all of these things. But we've lost a lot of kind of inherent trust in our fellow humans. So that's important to rebuild. And I think lastly, we need something from the divine. Now I am going to turn this over to you because this is not my area of expertise. But for me personally, a lot of people, and even me personally, have kind of turned away from religion or from the divine, which, like that lovely book, Why Do Good Things Happen to Good People? Why do bad things happen to good people, right? I think a lot of people are asking, why has this happened to all of us for no apparent reason? And so people have turned away from religion, from the divine. And I think that's ultimately, it seems easy, but it can be ultimately pretty detrimental. I think even if someone needs to re-examine their concept of the divine, their God concept, so it makes sense in their new world, that's okay. But I think it's important not to abandon that. I don't know, Rabbi, what you've read about that or experienced with people.
That's a very good question, because one of the things that people notice is that there's a move away from formalized religious organizations, again, because of this dislocation, but compensated in some sense maybe by alternate online communication connections, or maybe individual spirituality. They may not be factored in any formal group. There is a great deal of research done on this idea that people that have some kind of religious foundation tend to go through and ride out tough times more easily than people who have no sense of faith. It is like the sense of hope. From a rationalist point of view, we say there is no hope. We'll end up in the same place. But once we take that approach, then might as well shut down. So there's something in this, that when people have a sense of hope from something more powerful, that enables them to go forward in life. And that's really that's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions just at this point? Anybody? Carmen.
Ask Andrea. Can you hear us?
Yes. Hello.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah. In terms, I mean, I understand the divine and all of that, but in terms of the practical, when you talked about a little bit earlier about the trust in each other in terms of, is someone vaccinated or not? And that's a real issue, especially in our congregation where we have so many elderly people, that when someone walks in the door, I mean, no one wants to wear a mask. Yet you don't, the only reason why you cannot wear a mask is if you're vaccinated. And the only way to know that is if you ask. Because and there's a level, and by asking, there's an implicit level of distrust already put there, like it happened this morning, actually. And so how do we, what suggestions do you have of being able to bridge those gaps and to not feel like you are being the fly in the ointment or whatever it is at the party, and still ensure the safety of ourselves and all the others around us? Because I cannot put my safety in the hands of somebody expecting that they are going to take care of me. I have to ask the question.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Well, now I know how Dr. Fauci felt. No, that's a really tough question. I'm not a scientist, so I can't speak to, well, how long will the vaccinations last and how long will the masks help? But I understand what you mean in terms of that unsettling feeling, which is why, in a lot of places in healthcare settings, for example, you still have to wear a mask no matter what. In public transit, you still have to wear a mask no matter what. Now, I know that that's not a lot of fun. I've also been places, concerts, etc., where they simply check your vaccination card. Even some healthcare offices, to even show up in person, you have to provide them record of vaccination. And then it's on file. So, in some places that might work where you kind of have regular people filing in. And, LA has made it so easy. There's a digital version of your vaccination record. You can just either put it on file with, for example, the temple, or show it at the door. And if that's a policy, it doesn't feel as much like, well, I'm targeting you because you look like you're not vaccinated, or I don't know who you are. If it's a policy and everybody has to kind of follow it and show it, I think every business has the right. Now, again, not a lawyer either, but I think every institution has the right to set their own limits and requirements, right, regarding masks or vaccination. Does that help? Maybe? Does that make sense? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Policy on metropolitan buses in Los Angeles is you do not have to wear a mask if you don't want to. They are not enforcing it.
Really? I thought that they just reinstituted it on public transit, like in the last week or so. It's like, I take a good amount of public
The
transit.
county is going to drop it. CDC is dropping. A lot of these things are dropping. Part of it because the vaccination doesn't prevent transmission. That's one of the things.
Right.
And the masking is only also partly effective.
Right. So we're
Again,
dealing with
loose,
incomplete
they're not fitting.
solutions.
Yeah. So, yeah, there is risk. There is risk in everything. So one of the questions is, how do we deal with risk? Yeah.
And risk creates a lot of stress.
Andrea, that's just Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, remember? I talked to you just a couple last week.
Of course I remember. How could I forget?
So how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for
I'm
the
fine,
visit.
thank you. It was good to talk to you. It's very nice. I appreciate it very much.
I was honored. So yeah, I know risk creates a good amount of stress. And the thing is, we don't have answers. It's sort of there, but I know this isn't a Jewish thing, but there, but for the grace of God go I kind of thing, right? Like, well, is the mask helping? Is the vaccination helping? In a lot of ways, it makes us feel better, but we don't actually know to what extent it is helping, right? Everybody's got a different opinion.
Okay, now, got a last one. You came up with an acronym, SAVE.
I do love my acronyms.
As a way of how we give each other support. Explain that to me.
So I mean, it's very easy to say, well, support each other, be nice, trust each other, etc. But when it gets down to it, we're kind of so ingrained in our ways that any change, I think, requires, like I said, some real intention. So again, when we left Egypt, it was not, yes, I know we say when I went out of Egypt, fine, but you didn't go alone. You went in a group. Seder is not a meal you eat by yourself. We left en masse, right? We went with each other. And how did we manage? We managed with each other. So I did come up with this acronym for ways that we can support each other. Easy to remember, it's SAVE, SAVEE. So S stands for, Rabbi, you want to tell me? Because I gave you my cheat sheet.
Cheat sheet, okay, support.
Support. So support, a little vague, but I think it's important to remember to give people what they need, not what you might need in that situation, or not what you think they need, or what they should need, but what they actually need. If you listen to what people are saying, they'll often really tell you, here's what I need. Like, this is what I need from you, whether it's practical support, emotional support, even financial support, social support, to support people in the ways that they need. And in turn, hopefully people will do that for you. So that's S. A.
Accept.
So tying into that, accepting that everyone is at a different point. Everyone does have personal concerns. Carmen is very concerned for her own health, and other people are too, for other reasons. Some other people are not. They might be fine. So accepting that everyone's at a different point everyone has different needs, and implicit in that is respecting those needs, not saying, well, why are you so worried about your health? It's totally fine. I'm totally fine. Right? That's you. That's your journey. Accept and respect that someone else is at a different place. So that's A. So support, accept. V,
Validate.
validate. This is my favorite because I don't know, maybe it's a therapist thing. They knock this into your head. We are not really in the habit of validating each other. You know, we tend to listen to each other and say, okay, I heard you, now it's my turn. Let me talk. I want to say something, right? It's so powerful. And I know it might sound really cliche, but it's so powerful to simply acknowledge that you're hearing someone, right? To put forth that active listening, to hear what they're saying, save your part. You'll get to talk later, but save your business. And you know, there's a lot of easy phrases that, again, might sound cliche, but they're so powerful. Imagine if someone said to you, wow, I understand. That makes a lot of sense. That must be really hard. How did you manage? That's one of my favorite because it helps people find their strengths. You know, how did I manage? That was hard. How did you manage that hard situation? Wow, I really admire your strength, your dedication, your will to survive, right? So that sort of validation is so powerful. We often tend towards pity, shame, guilt. I feel awful, you poor thing, that's horrible, right? That doesn't, now we're having a cat, sorry. You know, that doesn't make people feel good. That makes them feel, yeah, hi, Schweizergatze, go on the floor, thank you. Pity doesn't feel good. Often we think, you know, compassion comes across as pity, and we don't realize it. We think we're being kind when really it just sounds like, oh, wow, and the person feels even worse. So saying things that simply recognize what they're saying, that you hear them as a human, that you understand, that you admire their strength, that is real validation.
So it's giving a compliment, but not making it schmaltzy. It's giving us a soft compliment. So that the person
a genuine compliment.
Yeah, feels encouraged, then would open up. Whereas if you said, gee, it's a pity, it's shut down, you might shut
right down. That's kind of trivializing almost, right? So someone says, you know, I lost my business during the pandemic. Oh, that's a shame. Okay, that's also a conversation stopper, as opposed to, wow, that must have been really hard. You're saying, yeah, that's a reasonable reaction that you're having. How did you manage to, you know, keep your family together? Because that shows their strengths. They did manage to keep their family together, right? So it's really small turns of language that can have so much power. Yeah, so that's V. So support, accept, validate, and
then E for encourage.
Encourage, because, you know, once we've acknowledged what's happening, acknowledged how painful it can be, we encourage people. Let's not confuse encourage with give someone advice, unless they say, hey, Rabbi, I need some advice, right? A lot of times we want to give advice, we want to problem solve. People come to us and they want validation, they want to be heard, they want compassion and friendship. They don't necessarily want advice because chances are they've thought about all these problems. If they want advice, I'm sure they'll ask. So once you hear someone, don't give them advice. Maybe ask them about their future, about their plans, about, you know, do you have a thing you're going to do about this? Do you have a way forward? What are you thinking about, right? And that also encourages them maybe to think about new things, and you'll get into a conversation and you'll inspire them, but you won't be giving them advice. You should do this thing, right? Should is not a word I love.
That's what you said about the book, was it?
Yeah, well, people should on themselves. It's like then there's a shame involved if it doesn't happen, right? As opposed to I want this to happen, which is aspirational. So yeah, and in that way, encouraging people, you can also praise the efforts that they are making to move forward, because the same way that how they got here wasn't the same as how you got here, how they're going to move forward is not the same as how you might move forward.
I think that it's one of the, maybe it's Rogers, classic schools, was to recognize that people have the tools inside themselves your job is just to help clarify it and bring it out, help them bring it out. That's
Right.
right. Let people, because the courage and the strength comes inside if they know where it is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, think about it. I'm sure a difficult time in everyone's past. You've run into someone who you wanted compassion, you wanted guidance, you wanted encouragement, right? And they probably gave you advice and a to-do list, and you thought, well, that's saying that my efforts aren't good enough, and you didn't really hear what I said, right? That's not a great feeling. It doesn't move us forward. It doesn't build us back together as a community.
Then I ask you this also. There are all sorts of techniques. When somebody feels tense or anxious, let's say somebody has to go out, is very concerned, who am I going to bump into? Haven't bumped into anybody in a long time. What can I do to relax? Or do you have we can even try something with the people here.
Yeah. So again, like we said, stress, worry, stress, concern, just everything spinning around. Our brains are really constructed to focus on the negative things in order to keep us safe. That doesn't really make for a happy life though, right? If we're constantly freaking out about everything. If you haven't experienced that, take it from me, it doesn't help. So we need to find a way to center ourselves, to kind of let all that stress fall to the wayside, so our happier ourselves, our souls can sort of come out and reassert themselves. So something I do a lot with my clients is meditation. I promise I'm not a hippie, at least by California standards. But there's so much research, there's so much evidence on the benefits of meditation, really, in any form that works for someone. Why? Because it gives this chatty worry mind, this stress mind, something to do. It's like giving a toddler a toy to play with, and then shuts up for a little bit, and the rest of you can come out and be calm. But really, physiologically, it changes how your brain works. It changes your stress response. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It's just like all around good stuff. Like if we could put it in a pill, it would be great. There's tons of forms that work. I love to do like a short thing that is so easy to do, even if you're out in public and kind of find yourself in a stressful situation. If you're up for that, we can try it together.
You want to walk us through something? Yeah.
Sure. So a lot of meditation focuses on breathing, because it is literally the most natural thing in the world. But when you're stressed, you stop breathing. You don't breathe deeply. You don't get as much oxygen. Your muscles get tense. You get a little lightheaded because you don't get oxygen. And in focusing on, hi, sweetheart. In focusing on breathing, you can regulate it in a lot of ways. So a lot of meditation focuses on breathing. It focuses on awareness. It gives your chatty brain something to do. So let's try this. I don't know how much you can see me, but if you sit up in your chair, lean back, so your spine's kind of supported and straight, and feet on the ground, so no cross legs, feet on the ground, really get back in touch with where we come from. And if you're comfortable with it, close your eyes. If not, you can focus softly, like on one spot in front of you, maybe on the ground. I'm going to close my eyes because I like it. Actually, no, because my notes are here. So take a deep breath in through your nose. And we're going to do it what we call box breathing. So it's going to be in for 4, hold for 4, and then out through your mouth for 5, right? When your out breath is longer, it literally calms your whole system down. So let's try it. We'll go in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5. In, hold, out. Once more, in, hold, out. Okay, leave your eyes closed or on the soft focus in front of you. Really feel your seat bones grounded into the chair, your feet on the floor, your back against the chair, so you can really feel your physical body in space. take in kind of, if you're in the synagogue, if you're able to be in the synagogue this morning, take in kind of the holy feeling around you, because that is such a special place. Keep breathing in through your belly, expanding that space in your diaphragm, in your belly. And tune into your senses. So for example, can you name in your head 4 things that you're physically feeling? So for example, okay, I feel, this little breeze that's blowing. I feel the softness of my sweater. I feel my bottom on the chair. So really tuning into your physical body, and giving your brain something to do, something to think about. So take a few breaths thinking about that. I can feel my heart beating. That's good. And then do the same thing for things that you might hear. So, okay, I hear the air conditioning. I hear my cat meowing. I hear Andrea talking. I hear my own breath. So see if you can identify 3 things that you're hearing. And then see if you can tune into your sense of smell. What are 2 things maybe that you smell? You smell the smell of the Torah, because it was out and has that beautiful old smell. Maybe your special perfume scent that you wear on Shabbat. Are there 2 things you can smell? Even things that aren't nice. I can smell the cat food. Kind of the last thing I like to do in this sensory awareness is to identify in this moment something that you feel gratitude for. It can be from small to enormous. Grateful that you are able to be at the synagogue, grateful for the beautiful weather, grateful to be alive, grateful for your cat. So I liked in this moment to think about just one thing that you're really grateful for. Now take a second and see in your body, in your shoulders, in your chest, in your whole body, how do you feel in terms of stress and in terms of calm and serenity and groundedness after doing that? That was literally like 4 minutes, 5 minutes of just regulated breathing and some sensory awareness. Or you can open your eyes if your eyes are closed. And that's a very quick thing that people can do, even, like I said, out in public. You don't need a meditation garden or a cushion or anything. Just that awareness and breathing brings us back into our bodies, turns off our worry brains, and kind of calms our nervous system. So I'd be curious to hear how, even after that tiny little check-in, how people are feeling.
How are you doing? Okay. It's good. Oh yeah, Karen's rested, relaxed, alone. I like the last point you said about feeling some gratitude, because I think that it's widely recognized that that's one of the core issues. When people feel that things, they have it coming to them and they don't get it, frustrated, they're angry, they break out, they burst out. So when you appreciate what you have, much easier then to say, okay, what do I need? Now, it's obviously different being somebody sitting in an apartment in Los Angeles, sitting in an apartment in Kiev, with the missiles flying, But most of us are not there. We're here in relatively safe places.
But even so, I bet you if you asked Joe or Barbara, they would say that, in their youth and their most difficult times, that gratitude is probably something that got them through. It's an instinct in some ways, but there's also so much research that shows, I think it's like if you keep a gratitude journal for 2 months, like 70% of people saw an increase in happiness. They make gratitude journals, or you can just write down 3 things you're grateful for in that day. When we have Shabbat here, we always say, what are 3 things I'm grateful for this past week? So that it rewires you. It literally does, because we're built to remember negative things to keep us safe, right? Keeps us safe doesn't necessarily keep us happy.
Yeah, but interesting also in Judaism, one core concept is the idea of hakarat tov. One must always give thanks for that which is good, and even when things are not good, to give thanks because maybe it will lead to something good.
Right. And it could always be worse.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. It can always be worse. There's a good answer. There's a good answer. It could be raining. That was the. Andrea, I want to thank you so much. I think
Oh, thank you.
feels rested and relaxed. And now I'm going to
And
go
in
ahead.
terms, sorry. In terms of meditation, there are so many good free guided meditations on YouTube. It's not just sitting in the corner and not listening to anything. That would drive me nuts. But there's so many guided ones where they just instruct you how to focus on your breath or instruct you what to think about, kind of like we just did, but probably with a much nicer voice. And they're free in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It can really make such a difference if it's something you keep doing.
No, I think that the idea of being able to sit back and unwind, especially when we go into some situation, we know it's going to be a difficult situation. Bring in for a doctor's exam or meet with the IRS, things like that, or a neighbor that has been annoying us, right? So, and how to go through, calm down a little bit. So then it's easy to take and deal and work with. Very important.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much. Thank you for gracing us with your presence and your words. Appreciate it very much. And I hope that people who are here and people who are watching either Facebook or YouTube or will see this later on, we will share. I'll get you a link so you can share it with people that you want also.
Yeah.
Okay, and to your mother, hello. And Shabbat Shalom to you also. I see Simon and Doug. And to Dan, yes, to Daniel also. Everything good. Okay, to everybody, we're going to go ahead now.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
And we're going to go into Adon Olam. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead. Let me pull it up. And let's see, here we go. What happened? Let me get to, ID.
Adonai lama asher moholach b'terem kol yetzur nivro reis na'so v'cheftzo yikol azay melech shemo yikro ve'acharei ki cheloi se ha'kol levadoyim lo yichnoiro ve'hu hoyo ve'hu oive ve'hu yiyeh b'siforo והוא אחד וישייני להמשיל אלוהי להחבירו בלי ריישיס בלי סחליס ולא יבויז ויהמיסרו והוא כלי וחי גויאלי וצור חבלי ביש צורו והוא Humanoisli menos koisi beyoy mekiro ay beyodoy afkid ruhi beysi shan beyoy yiro beimruhi gibi yobos yashem li velo yiro וחי גויאלי וצור חבלי ביש צורו והוא ניזי koisi beyoy mekiro
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Next week, we're going to mark Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel Independence Day. Thank you, Andrea. We give you excused absence. Okay.